Yeah, those shares in Liam McFarlane really seem to be paying off now. Welcome to Heart Standard. My name is Craig Cairns, and we are back with another live show for the second day in a row. And you'll be delighted to know that we've finally found a different voice to bring on the show. And that is Scott McIntosh. You may know him as from Amoruso Let's It Run or Scarves Around the Funnel. Scott, how have you been over the last week?
Yeah, not too bad. There's been plenty of interesting chat off the back of the Cup exit at the weekend. I think it's fair to say everyone's had their opinion on where that went wrong. So I think that'll probably spill over into what we're about to discuss in terms of tomorrow's team.
Yeah, definitely. And just before we do, I'm trying something that's part fun, part experiment. I'm going to try and do a wee quiz as we go. A bog standard. Who am I? You can join in if you want as well, Scott, obviously. But if you do know the answer, at least for the first couple of clues, if you're sure you know the answer, keep it to yourself. But I'm happy for some guesses. So yes, here's the first clue in the Who Am I? And it's a topical one. I scored my first goal for the club against Motherwell. So we'll come back to that throughout the show. Please get involved, those who have joined us. Thank you to everyone who has joined us. Get your comments in, and we will try to get through as many as we can. It'll just me manning the comments while hosting, so might not get to quite as many as we usually do. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and please check everything out at heartstandard.co.uk. Heart Standard is brought to you by S1 Jobs, and if it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to S1 Jobs and upload your CV today. With thousands of jobs across Edinburgh and the surrounding area, you'll find the one S1 Jobs. Start your search today. Now, as I said, we're going to be previewing the Hearts Motherwell game on Saturday. Kicks off at 3 o'clock. Scott, how are you feeling going into this one?
Quite happy that we've got a home fixture, first and foremost, to try and react to the disappointment of last week. I think Motherwell, it's quite a good opponent to get in terms of how they've changed their style from previous seasons. I think that's a good advantage for us as well. So yeah, I'm quite happy with how the fixtures have panned out, because it does give us a chance to have an immediate sort of response to last week.
One of the things that came out from the press conference this week from Derek McInnes, it was just yesterday actually, sorry, I'm used to it being a Wednesday, he appeared to be slightly and arguably rightly irked at the constant attention on the game last week and the sort of the one game that Hearts haven't won this season. Did you pick up on that, and what did you make of it, if so?
Yeah, and look, I think that's fair. I think what probably Derek McInnes needs to, I'm sure he probably does acknowledge this in the background, but I think what he probably needs to acknowledge that there's probably a lot of historical context as to why there was that feeling of frustration on Sunday. Yeah. Now, is that his fault? No, he cannot be blamed for over 6 decades of failures under previous regimes. But that said, historical context is going to mean that there's going to be more scrutiny and more frustration to what was ultimately a 1-1 draw, and then, you know, penalties, which is always, don't like to use the term lottery because I don't think that's right, but that's when it comes down to fine margins as to whether you're going to progress or not. So yeah, I can understand why he's probably a bit irked, but I do also understand why there has been that level of scrutiny off the back of the result as well. I think it's got more to do with things away from just that one isolated performance and result. A lot of it's to do with the fans' frustrations with regards to our ongoing ineptitude with that competition.
No, I agree with that. But do you feel that it has maybe been lost a little bit, that, or at least it was for a couple of days, that Hearts have actually made a pretty good start to the season?
Yeah, I mean, that probably happened to me because I was in Ewan Murray's presence for at least a couple of hours on Monday. So the way Ewan was reacting to the result on Sunday, I think it's easy to get sort of, it's easy to get a bit too knee-jerk to that one result and maybe not acknowledge the progress that we've been making in the previous weeks prior to that. Again, nothing's perfect. I don't think anyone's claiming it is, and we still have issues with trying to integrate a lot of the new signings into the squad, especially into the first 11. But I think if you look at where we are just now to where we were, say, 2 months ago in terms of squad building, fixing some of the problems that we've had historically with the squad over the last couple of years. I think we've actually made some pretty significant steps, but it was never going to happen overnight. And I think maybe what Sunday's just pointed out to a few fans is that we're not quite where we want to be yet, but I don't think we're that far off either.
Cammy is saying here we should not get beat by St Mirren. Now, I agree with that, all things being equal, but and I don't know if you kind of disagree. I think I'm just talking absolute nonsense, Scott. But something I said to Joe recently was, if Hearts come up against Aberdeen, Dundee United and St Mirren at any point in the fixture list, they don't have any right to be going and winning all three of those matches. And I think it's maybe getting a little bit greedy. And I know that there's maybe a little bit more riding on the St Mirren one, because with the league ones, you've got a bit more time to make up if you don't win one of those. But I just feel like you can be getting a bit greedy, and we're still very early in a process here.
Yeah, I think sometimes as well, you do have to acknowledge St Mirren's home form. Now, I get it. So I get that in terms of, if you want to talk about financial sort of disparities between the two clubs and sort of historical differences in the sizes of the two clubs, then yeah, you can make a really strong case for Hearts beating St Mirren most of the time. But if you were to actually look at St Mirren's home form over the last couple of seasons, very seldom are teams going there and getting results, especially teams from the sort of top 5, 6 in the country. So what you tend to find with clubs like St Mirren is that they are specifically set up to do well against the bigger clubs, just because of the way that they want to press the game. Now, when they're at home to say Motherwell or St Johnstone or that, yep, the last couple of seasons, you'll see that they've actually struggled, because they then are required to be maybe the protagonists in those matches. But against Hearts, Hibs, Aberdeen, Rangers and Celtic, if you look at their form over the last couple of years, it's been really good in those fixtures. So I wasn't overly surprised by the fact that it happened. The manner that it happened was a surprise, because of probably how we set up from the start. But Derek McInnes has alluded to the mistakes that he's potentially made with that as well. So it is just a case of moving on now and trying to make sure that happens less and less so the more we go on.
Just kind of following on from something that you said there, what kind of start do you expect? What kind of response do you expect? A fast start, get at Motherwell, the kind of things that we kind of expect and want at Tynecastle, and the kind of things that McInnes has already said he wants Tynecastle to be?
Yeah, I'm expecting something quite similar to the opening sort of 10 or 15 minutes against Aberdeen. And again, this is where I think playing against Motherwell will help with that. I think Motherwell will look to build from the back, which will give us the opportunity to sort of squeeze the game and suffocate them in the middle of the park. So I think the mixture of us coming back from that defeat and Motherwell being the opponents, it does seem to be a good sort of partnership for us to get back to what we were doing well a couple of weeks ago. So I'm quite confident that's how we'll start the game. I'd be very surprised if we come out and we're quite passive in the opening 5-10.
Right, let's go. I probably should have had this ready a bit quicker, but let's go in for another clue in the quiz. Is it? There we are. I thought it wasn't going to come up there. Who am I? So a refresher of the first clue. It was I scored my first goal for the club against Motherwell. The second one is I was a striker and scored another 3 goals in total in my one season at the club against Celtic, Hibs, and another against Motherwell. Any guesses, Scott? Or did you know the answer from the first one?
No, I still have to think about that wee one, actually. I'll need to have a little think about that.
No worries. Anybody else get their comments in? Right, now let's go on to talk a wee bit more about who might play. I'll bring in some comments and then we can just talk about in general. Ian Gillespie says, if Benny had the durability of Lawrence, he would never be out my team. He's a class act. I would always make room for him. He's vital. Cammy says, Goody switched to the 3 at the back to a 4. I mean, I don't know if Cammy knows something I don't. I mean, I'd quite like him to stay.
You never know with these team leaks, eh?
Exactly, but things have been getting leaked a lot recently, so who knows? Josh McCaig says Cabangu, Shanks, Braga up top. I think Joel, that's not too far from what Joel thinks. I think he maybe thinks it'll be a front 3. Chris White says could be a good thing. Don't know if it'll be a back 3, back 4 wingers or not. It's harder for opposition to work out a play against us, especially if we can switch up mid-match. Any of those you want to? There's a couple more that are kind of on the same subject, but any of those you kind of subjects you want to pick up on?
I think the comment about Cabangu and Shanks and Braga, that's how I would have set up at St Mirren. I possibly would have started with Wilson instead of Cabangu, but I would have played with a more narrow three to have allowed Shankland to have a bit more support and also play balls in between their wing backs and their centre halves. I just felt that with the setup of Kazaridis and Kabore out wide, the game was pretty much played in front of St Mirren's back five, and it was far too easy for them to sort of squeeze the game on us. So I get where that thinking comes from. I think I would probably go slightly differently to that for tomorrow, but it's not so much because I don't think there's merit in playing with those three up top. It's more to do with some of the other issues we've got throughout the squad. And I think what Chris White was saying about the systems, that's true. I mean, there's a couple of teams. I mean, I look at Hibs, for example, just now. Hibs are very stuck to having to play a back three because I don't think any of their defensive players can play in a flat four. And I think they proved that at the beginning of last season. So there is merit to having two systems that teams aren't aware what you're going to... I just think there's certain positions within those two that we're still not quite sure who our strongest player would be, for example, in that sort of right full-back, right wing-back position. So I think we've still got issues there, although I'm quite happy with the fact that we do seem to be setting up a squad that can maybe switch between the two mid-game as well.
That's exactly where I was going to go next. I was going to say that Joel and I have been talking about for a couple of weeks now about his ideal would probably be a system where he can switch between the two mid-game without having to make a substitution. The injury to Borchgrevink's hamstrung that because, if you would excuse the pun, it's hampered them doing that because there's no other obvious person. I mean, there's no obvious person to play right back, right wing back, or right wing at the moment. Never mind just one of them.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. I don't think I think that's what I'm saying about making significant steps forward as a squad. There's just issues again with integrating certain players into the first team and also trying to fix one or two outstanding issues we've still got due to injuries and that as well.
And one of the other things that's coming up in the comments, which is related to the right-sided issue, Cammy says McIntosh is a good right back, but good in the middle. And Sean McGee similarly says, I hope he puts McIntosh back in midfield. While I understand them covering it right back, we're taking away our best attacking midfielder when playing with defence. Yeah, I mean, maybe push back a wee bit on attacking midfielder. I know what you're saying. I mean, he likes to attack, but I think he's a bit more sort of everything. I'm just a wee bit. I'm not saying you're wrong there, Sean. It's just a bit. It's a bit jarring to see him described as a attacking midfielder when he was playing centre half last season. But I think this is an important point, and I don't think it's. I think it's something McInnes is fully aware of. I think it's something he maybe tried to get away with against St Mirren and it didn't quite work. But I think he, with everybody fit, would have McIntosh as one of the first names in the team sheet in the centre of midfield. Yeah,
I would agree. And I think Derek McInnes probably does believe that that's the case as well. I get where Sean's coming from. I think he does offer us something in the attacking third that we maybe haven't seen from our other central midfielders over the past couple of seasons. And he does offer us an extra option in there, especially when we're crossing the balls for deep as well. I think it's imperative we try and get him back into the midfield. As much as I actually quite enjoyed what Magnuson could give us on the ball last week, I felt that off the ball there was quite a significant difference between him and McAtee, although he was neutered by the early booking as well, so we don't know really how much Magnuson can offer us in that respect because of the early booking. But yeah, I think it's imperative we get McAtee and Devlin back in there. There's that sort of, again, it's about balance. It's not about playing the best players. It's about finding balance and combinations throughout the pitch. I remember a few years ago when we started really well under Craig Levein, we started with a pretty much just a flat four in the midfield, and it was actually Ollie Lee and Peter Harron that were playing in the centre. And although Arnold Djoum was a better central midfielder than those two, when he came back in from injury and they tried to shoehorn him in with that, it just upset the rhythm of the team. So I think although you've got individuals like Benny who, you speak to any Hearts player, any Hearts fan, they'd probably say he's one of the best players at the club, and I wouldn't argue with that. I think we have found a decent balance with McAtee and Devlin in there just now. And I think if you were to add anything, it would be probably another 8 to the team. So it would be somebody like a Magnuson or a Neuenhoff just now, rather than bringing Benny in and having 2 sitters, because I don't think that's what's required in these home games.
Okay, we will go to the third clue now and then play a little clip before we discuss how Motherwell's style could impact the game. So, a recap, the first one was I scored my first goal for the club against Motherwell. I was a striker and I scored another 3 goals in my one season at the club against Celtic, Hibs, and another against Motherwell. And upon signing, I said I have a very good relationship with Oisin McEntee, and I've heard very good things about the manager. Any ideas, Scott?
Aye, Connor Washington.
There you go. It's Connor Washington. We didn't get many people having guesses in the comments, so I don't know whether it was a bit of a failed experiment. Oh, I've just taken Scott off the stage for a second there, rather than the. This is what somebody was saying the other day. You need to hire a tech guy. Is that we can't afford a tech guy. We just have to. We just have to do it ourselves and let all the warts show. Right, I'm going to play. Speaking of warts, yesterday we tried to play a clip from Derek McInnes' press conference, and the audio wasn't very good. I have got a second clip that we were going to play yesterday. About Motherwell's style, which I will play now. I've boosted the audio on it, and then we can speak about that and how it could affect how Hearts approach the game.
This season, really committed to ball possession and committing to that possession-based game. Everybody asked to take the ball in tight areas and bring the opposition onto you. And I think the manager's clearly done some good work in a short period of time. A lot of that has been with a lot of the players who were already in the building, and obviously they've brought a few players in to try and help with that style. And you'd have to say up until now they've done really well. So well aware of the problems they faces. I think we're going to have to make sure out of possession we're in good shape and good nick and switched on. And in possession, we're going to have to make sure we try and exploit any spaces that are given to us and try and be as good as we can be. I think when you look at opposition, whether you're playing against a team, two contrasting styles from last week, but we've just got to concentrate on what we want to be. And I'm trying to say, I want us to be something this season. I've said it to the boys who have been here a lot longer, over the last few while, who are here regular. I want us to be something regardless of who we're playing, and that's the intention.
So I think what he's talking about at the end there is what we were talking about earlier, a bit of a fast start and get in their face and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of how Hearts will approach the game, what I've written in my predicted 11, the reason I've gone for a back four is because of that style that Motherwell play. Partly because they like to pass out from the back, they like their fullbacks to push on. And McInnes said last week after the St Mirren game that the idea was to play the two wingers to pin the wing backs of St Mirren back. This time it's the fullbacks in the back four that Motherwell play, and fullbacks in a back four. And I think he might try to play wingers to get in the space behind them, and then. That's why I think Steinbender will maybe come in at right back. I think that it maybe means Blair Spittle plays on the left wing. I know that's not going to be the most popular shout amongst a lot of people, but I think not only does he come in to provide a third midfielder, you want to get on top of Motherwell's midfield. They build through it a lot. It allows Harry Milne to play a bit like a left winger. It means Steinbender can tuck in. And then it leaves the old question of who plays on the right wing. I'm going for Kurjota, and I know it maybe be an odd one because he wasn't in the squad at all the last game there, but I think that's just because he's got so many players. I don't think it's necessarily to do with how Kurjota is doing or progressing or anything like that. And I just think it's more natural for a minute. At first, I was going to put Kizaridis, but I just don't know if he would... After his first half last week, I don't know whether he would then play him out of position in his next game on the other side and expect him to put in a performance. And he spoke about how he's good off the bench and stuff, so you might save him for that again. I don't know if you could ask 10,000 different Hearts fans what their lineup would be and get 10,000 different answers. So tell me what you agree and disagree with in that.
Well, I agree with a lot of that. I think if you were to speak to a lot of Hearts fans, who did want to see play tomorrow, I think some would make the mistake of just looking at individuals rather than getting the system right first. Mm-hmm. And that's when you'll start to see people saying, well, Kizaridis is got to start getting games. Kabori's got to start getting games. Magnus is going to... And it's like, well, that's all well and good, and I do agree with that to an extent. We do need to try and integrate these guys into the system, but I think we need to get the system right first and foremost. We need something that's going to complement the majority of the squad that we have at the club. Now, I probably would have went 4-3-3 if we'd had a right back that I feel could offer us something going forward, but I think because we don't, I think you probably are going to go with the 4-4-2 instead, or hopefully what we see it turning into is more of a 4-2-4. So I don't really disagree with much of what you've said in terms of the personnel either. I think Blair Spittle is a safer choice for me out on the left. I think there's the possibility of there being more combination play between him and Milne, just based on how Spittle was able to sort of interchange with Penrice last season. I think Kurjota, again, is another good option on the right, because I think what he can offer you, because he primarily played out wide right in his previous club, is he can be a bit more of a direct option on the right-hand side rather than wanting to cut in. And I do think because we're going to play with Steinvender probably at right back, we do need a sort of winner that is going to sort of hug the touchline, more to speak. I don't think we need somebody that's going to cut in, because although that would allow space for the right back, if the right back's primarily Steinvender, then he's not going to be good enough to exploit that space anyway. Yeah. So I think the shout at Kurjota sound as well. But again, I understand that some people will not be happy, because then that means that we're not fitting in maybe as many of the new starts as maybe like to see. But I think it's all about getting the system right and sort of neutering what Motherwell can offer. There's no point in playing a free tomorrow. Motherwell are going to go with probably a lone front man. There's no point in having three centre halves up against that. So I do think the flat back four would be the best way forward.
Yeah, another reason, another thing that I went by was what he said after the game last week about maybe playing one too many of the new players. So I thought that maybe he would just sort of revert a wee bit back to the likes of Spittle and stuff. Although saying that, I think Cammy must be somebody that knows something we don't. He's been Spittle's not fit.
Cammy's got a job at the Orium, I think. Cammy definitely works at the Orium.
And Harrison Mowat is saying, what about Hoff? I mean, he could come in. I mean, it'd be a different system maybe slightly if Hoff Neuenhoff is playing instead of Spittle, but and then Cammy says he'll pick Forrest, and I would not be surprised if he played him. And again, I wouldn't be like too disgruntled by it either. I had another one. Oh, there we go. Liam C did say Connor Washington. So there was a correct answer in there. I don't think there's much else for us to cover unless I'm just going to bring up the last clue that I had for just for completion's sake. I was a Northern Ireland international, but born in England, and my other clubs included QPR, Sheffield United, Charlton Athletic, and Derby. I think the third one gave it away too much. Thanks, everybody. Oh, I've just done it again. I just got rid of Scott again. We definitely need to be getting a tech guy in. Right. Scott, is there anything else that you are? This is my customary question to Joel at the end of the show. Is there anything else you want to add? Any other business before we get out of here?
No, just other than that, I think tomorrow will be a positive day for Hearts. One of the things we've not touched on is obviously we're well aware that Hearts have been very prolific from set plays tomorrow. I think something that will strengthen our case for getting more goals from here tomorrow is the fact that Motherwell have looked significantly ropey from that. They've decided to go with a zonal marking system, which I'm not a huge fan of, just generally. And I do think there's going to be opportunities to set plays tomorrow as well, although I would like to see us get one or two goals from open play as well. That would be nice. Aye,
that we could do with that. Starting to happen, but it's an interesting point you make there. And from watching the set pieces thing, and then on top of that, watching them play against Rangers, they looked to play out from the back, but they're asking. I think Liam Gordon might be injured now, though. But they're asking players like Liam Gordon and Paul McGinn and the like to do that. Who, I mean, sort of varying levels of how good they are on the ball, but they're not. It's not like they're naturals at doing that. So it does seem that that's why I think Braga will play, for instance, because they'll look to Hearts will whatever shape they will look to press them and basically test them. Do you have the resolve to continue to do this?
And I think, look, don't get me wrong, what Motherwell were trying to achieve with that style of play against Rangers looked good. But I think, as we've seen from Rangers since then, you could park a jumbo jet between the two Rangers central midfielders in terms of where they pick up their positions. They go out wide quite a lot, so it was quite easy for Motherwell to play in a straight line and just have their goalie or their centre half knock the ball to their number 10. I don't think you're going to get that tomorrow for them. So again, I think the things that Motherwell have been getting praised for this season, I can see us easily sort of negating and sort of neutralising quite easily.
Brilliant. Scott, thanks very much for joining us.
No problem.
And thanks to everybody for tuning in, for commenting, for getting involved, all of that. Please check everything out at heartstandard.co.uk. We have an app. We believe it's the best way to enjoy our content, and you can get a subscription, although it's better to subscribe through the website. Some of the content on the website and the app is free, but then you have to subscribe to see some of the other stuff. We will be back after tomorrow's game, but until then, we will see you all soon.